put this program. Yes, I need to say got it. I'll start. My name is Mary Detweiler. I'm a member of the Arlington County Democratic Committee, also known as Arlington Democrats. And I want to thank everyone who's helped us to put this program on. We're delighted to have you all join us for this very important topic of redistricting in Virginia. And I want to thank all the members of Arlington Democrats and the many other organizations who have made this program possible. Thank you to everyone, and who also have helped us by promoting it fairly widely. Our presenter, yeah, I would like everyone to please mute themselves. I'll mention that in a moment too. Our presenter is going to be Sam Shirazi. He will be introduced by Josh Kaplowitz, who many of you know. Josh is the engine behind the Arlington Democrats Blue Families Group. And we will also have help from Richard Skinner, who's another engine behind the Beyond Arlington Group for Arlington Democrats. Two little housekeeping things. One, please stay muted. There may be an opportunity for you to be recognized if you want for something special by one of our moderators, but I would ask that everyone please stay muted. There will be an opportunity to ask questions after the presentation. Please write them in chat, and that they will be read by one of our moderators, and that way everybody can hear the question, and then you'll hear the answer as well. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Josh Kaplowitz. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Mary. I'm coming to you live from O'Hare, beautiful O'Hare Airport, where I'm on my way back from a conference in San Diego. So that's why the mask. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce Sam Shirazi, our presenter for today. Sam lives in the East Falls Church neighborhood of Arlington with his wife and two daughters. He went to college. He's a double who. He went to college and law school at UVA and is a member of the Virginia Bar. But perhaps most importantly, he is a co-chair of the Arlington Blue Families group with me and several others. We're the sort of family-friendly initiative within the Arlington Democrats. But when the 2021 Redistricting Commission sort of took up the mantle of redistricting, Sam really stepped up to not just follow their efforts very closely, and then continue to follow it as it got turned over to the Virginia Supreme Court. But he also was sort of analyzing the various proposals and providing public comment. He actually figured out at the Redistricting Commission that the Republicans were attempting to use a map submitted by former Republican Congressman Tom Davis to create a gerrymander, and his tweets about it got a lot of statewide attention and sort of shifted the debate, and he'll tell you more about that. But yeah, so without any further ado, I want to turn it over to Sam Shirazi.
Well, thank you, Josh, and I want to thank the Arlington Democrats and specifically Mary for putting this event together. And I'm going to get it right into it because I want to share my screen, and I want to kind of hit the ground running with this stuff. So can you all see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, great.
Yes.
Okay, so I titled this Virginia Redistricting, Arlington and Beyond. And I'll kind of quickly go over the agenda. We're going to talk about Arlington, then we're going to talk about the congressional races, then state Senate, and then House of Delegates. And I spent a lot of time analyzing the Redistricting Commission and the state Supreme Court proposals and the process. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. If people have questions, they can put it in the chat, or I'm happy to talk to people offline about that. My focus is really what the districts are, what's going to happen in 2022 and then 2023, and what you can do. And my goal is to kind of give people an explanation of what happened during redistricting, so you can go out and focus on the districts that really matter, and also to get involved with Arlington Democrats. There's going to be a couple opportunities with Arlington Blue Families, with Beyond Arlington and other groups. And I really hope that, as interesting as all of this is, I hope it's kind of spurs you to want to do things and make a difference, because the midterms are coming up and we're going to have some really competitive congressional seats here in Arlington, in Virginia. So it's a great time to get involved. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump into it because we got a lot to cover, and I want to be able to talk as much as I can about everything that's going on. So, but before I get into Arlington, this is the number one question I get, and it's kind of the elephant in the room. Will there be House of Delegates elections this year? So normally House of Delegates elections would be in 2023. There's a lawsuit trying to get the courts to order elections this year, based on the fact that the old maps were used in 2021. So basically the new maps were not ready in time. We used the old maps in 2021. There's a lawsuit. It's currently up at the Fourth Circuit. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through the ins and outs of this lawsuit because there's a lot of complicated legal stuff going on. I will put on my lawyer hat for a second and just kind of analyze what's going on. I personally think it's relatively unlikely that we're going to have elections this year. You know, you never know with courts. You never know what's going to happen. I just think there's a difference with the 1981 precedent, which is kind of what the entire case is based on. And I don't want to spend too much time on it, but my personal opinion is I think it's not going to necessarily happen this year, but courts are unpredictable. There's really no way of knowing. So I would just encourage everyone to stay tuned and just kind of wait and see if we're going to have House of Delegates elections this year. My guess is if we're going to find out sometime in the spring, but it really is totally up in the air. So short answer is we don't know. I think it's unlikely, but that's just my opinion. We just really have to wait and see what happens. And I'm happy to talk more about it in the Q&A if people have specific questions. So Arlington, as we all know, Arlington is very blue. It's going to be blue. There's not going to be any competitive seats this decade, frankly, but there is going to be an open House of Delegates seat. So I'll go through what's going on in Arlington, and then we can go on to beyond Arlington, which is going to be one of the focuses of one of our focus for the midterms, because Arlington is so blue. Okay, so we are still in the 8th Congressional District. There's the current map is on the left and the new map is on the right. As you can see, very little change. This is actually the district that changed the least during redistricting. It's also the most Democratic district in all of Virginia. So it's not going to be competitive this decade. We are as blue as you can get in Virginia. So I'll leave it at that because there's not too much more going on besides we're basically the same in terms of the congressional district. State Senate. So it's not just the congressional districts that changed. It was all the General Assembly, the State Senate, and the House of Delegates. And there were some more changes in this area, although all the districts are very blue. So on the left is the current map, on the right is the new map. The main difference in the State Senate is that North Arlington will all now be in one State Senate seat. Currently, it's split between 2 State Senate seats. So we're just going to have one North Arlington seat, and parts of South Arlington are going to be in the seat connected to Alexandria. Really doesn't shake up the map too much. I think these obviously are going to be very blue, very safe seats this decade. So that's pretty much it. Not too much change in the State Senate. I did want to spend a little bit more time on the House of Delegates, because I think this is where redistricting changed things a little bit in Arlington and also in some ways helped Arlington. So if you look on the left, that's the current map. If you look on the right, that's the new map. It doesn't look super different, except in the new map, the 2nd district, which is the green district, is basically a brand new district, and there is currently no incumbent living in that district. So this district is roughly on the orange and blue lines, and this will have a primary, and there'll be a new delegate from Arlington. come the next House of Delegates elections. So if you live in the Green District, just be on the lookout. You will have a primary. The other districts might have primaries as well, but what makes this unique is there's no incumbent currently living there. So we're going to be a new delegate from Arlington, and that means Arlington's going to have a little bit more influence in the House of Delegates. Probably reflects some population change, the fact that Arlington's been growing. So that's the main House of Delegates change. As you can see, the districts are a little bit more compact. There's North Arlington's more in one district, but basically there's not a huge amount of change except for the fact that there's that new House of Delegates district. Again, all these districts are going to be very safe blue for this decade. They're never going to be competitive, which is a good thing. Arlington's very blue. We don't have to worry about it at the congressional level, at the state Senate level, at the House of Delegates level. So that's Arlington. I know I went through that kind of quickly, mainly because we're not going to have super competitive elections here. I did want to just really highlight the fact that we do have that new House of Delegates seat. Keep an eye out for that primary. I think it'll be competitive, and we'll have some great candidates, and we'll get a great new delegate, whoever that person is. Okay.
Forgive me for interrupting, but while you had the map up there, maybe you can, Michael Raisin from Ashlawn, maybe you can give some of the streets, because I can see Arlington Boulevard and I guess it's Washington Boulevard, but I don't know what the other streets are, and maybe.
Yeah, so these aren't necessarily streets, although they often do follow streets. These are the precincts, and I should have mentioned that. These are the different precincts in Arlington. I think this is Columbia Pike. The one, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's the one kind of in the upper part of the 3rd district. And then I think this is Langston Boulevard in one. And at the end, I'm going to give some resources about places you can go if you really kind of want to micro focus on your district and where your new representatives are going to be. So it's a little bit hard to kind of do it on this map because it's a precinct map, but thank you for raising that. I'll point out some resources at the end if you want to kind of really get a sense for what's going on with your district.
Excuse me, Sam, we have a question in the chat.
Sure.
Can you talk about how it affects Arlington's current House delegates?
Sure. So I think obviously they may have primary opponents, but the 1st district, the blue one in the new map, I believe Patrick Hope lives there, Delegate Hope. The 3rd district, I believe, is going to be where Delegate Lopez lives. And the 5th district, which is kind of, I actually don't even know if that is technically in Arlington or if that might all be Alexandria. So I think we're just going to have Delegate Hope in the 1st, Delegate Lopez in the 3rd, new delegate in the 2nd. Obviously, the current delegates may have primary challengers. We'll just have to wait and see. But that's kind of where things shape up. We're going to have likely have 3 delegates from Arlington, whereas one of the current delegates, or actually 2 of the current delegates who currently represent Arlington, don't live in Arlington. So that's Rip Sullivan, who's is in the McLean area, and then Elizabeth Bennett Parker, I think, lives in Alexandria. So hopefully that makes sense. Essentially,
yes. Excuse me. Yeah. What about Rip Sullivan? We know that most of his voters were in our county of Arlington, and now he's completely out of Arlington. I think he's in the district with Kathleen Murphy. Is there any information about that?
So I haven't heard where Rip or Delegate Sullivan has decided what to do. I mean, my understanding is he lives in McLean.
Yes.
I have not. Let's just say there's been a lot of delegates that are in the same districts as each other.
Yes.
And I think there's been a lot of, they're still figuring it out. I mean, people are talking, okay, I might want to run in this district. What are you thinking? I think that stuff's, being worked out. I don't know. I mean, it's possible he runs in the 1st. I haven't heard anything. I know Patrick Hope lives there, so I don't want to speculate because I really don't know, and we'll just have to wait and see when people announce. But in terms of where people actually live, we have one delegate in the first, we have one delegate in the third who currently lives there. We don't have any delegate in the second who currently lives there. And
Thank
Craig
you.
Hines
No, I
has
know he'll
raised his
never run
hand.
against the other Hope or Lopez. He would never do that. But anyway, thank you.
Craig Hines has raised his hand.
sure.
The common thinking in McLean is that Kathleen will not run again, and has supposedly said she would never challenge Rip.
Yeah, and I think you just have to wait and see. People are going to make announcements. Obviously, if the elections happen this year, they'll be accelerated. If not, probably over the next year, people will make announcements. I don't want to speculate beyond just kind of what's been confirmed out there that people, where people live, and so we'll just have to wait and see. And I think it'll be interesting. I don't think things are going to, for Arlington, going to change too much, except that second district we'll have a new delegate from Arlington, which will be great. We'll have another person who will represent our views in the House of Delegates. So, okay. So I will move right along because we got a lot to cover. I know people are interested in Arlington. I will move to Congress because we will have 100%. We're going to have congressional elections this year, and we have 3 Democratic seats that we need to defend. Big picture, there's a current map, there's a new map, and I'm going to dive into some of these districts in detail. Virginia currently has a 7-4 Democratic delegation. That means there's 7 Democrats, 4 Republicans. That's really good for a state like Virginia, which is not super blue. I think if we can keep a 7-4 delegation, that would be a huge accomplishment in a midterm year. Obviously, midterms, typically the party in power is playing defense, so we're going to have to be on defense. I know there are some Republican congressmen that we'd like to challenge. Realistically, I don't know how competitive some of those seats are going to be. So, my personal opinion is that we should focus on the 7 great Democratic members of Congress we have, and really try to make sure that they are reelected. And so, on that note, I'm going to dive into the 3 most competitive districts. The first is Virginia 10th district, which is currently represented by Congresswoman Wexton, who flipped that seat in 2018. I debated adding this to the list. It's technically one of the seats Democrats have identified, the Democratic Congressional Committee has identified as potentially competitive. So I put it on the list. As you can see, the district has not changed a whole lot. It has changed a little bit, but essentially it's a Loudoun-based seat, Loudoun County-based seat. Some changes around the edges. I'm going to put up some numbers. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this district because I don't think it's going to be super competitive. And the reason I say that, there's one number that if you look at what happened in the district in 2021, McAuliffe won the district. And obviously 2021 was a tough year for Democrats, but even in that environment, if you look at the votes in that district, people voted for McAuliffe 51-49, which is close, but McAuliffe won it. I think Wexton has a good reputation. She's a good congresswoman. She's popular in Loudoun. I just personally think it's not going to be one of the most competitive seats. Democrats can't take it for granted. They should work on that district, but unless it's a complete disaster, I think Democrats are going to be okay in that district. So I'm going to just move on to the more competitive districts. Virginia 7th. So this is currently represented by Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger. This is going to be one of the most competitive seats, not just in Virginia, but in the country. And if you look on the left, it was kind of this weird district that was mainly the Richmond suburbs, but kind of went into rural areas. And that was because the Republicans had gerrymandered it last time. If you look at the new district, it's very different. It's essentially no longer the Richmond suburbs. It's more kind of the I-95 corridor coming from Prince William County down to Spotsylvania. And then there's some rural areas in central Virginia. So the district is like completely shifted up to Nova and central Virginia. The thing to keep in mind with this district is there was some talk, well, is Congresswoman Spanberger going to be able to run in this district? Basically what's happened is she has cleared the field. She likely will be the Democratic nominee because I don't think anyone else has filed, and the filing deadline is coming up. So, she will be defending this seat. It's, and I'll go into the numbers about why Democrats have a good shot here if they put in the work, and Congresswoman Spanberger is known for putting in the work. So I think this will be a good seat for Democrats to be able to retain. I'll go through some of the numbers. So the district so the current version of the 7th, which is kind of the one that's more of the Richmond suburbs, Biden just carried that by a point. The new version of the 7th, Biden carried by about 7 points. So this is actually a district where Democrats benefited from redistricting. It became a more Democratic district. Now, obviously, it's still competitive, but there's a little bit of a cushion there. But notice how the new district went in 2021. Youngkin won this district by about 5 points. So this is very much a swing district. I don't think Democrats can really take anything for granted. Congresswoman Spanberger is a, we all likely know her. She's popular. She works hard. I think, if we focus on the district, we put in the time, the resources, this is the type of district Democrats can win, even in a challenging environment. There are a bunch of people running on the Republican side, but I think the main contenders are State Senator Bright Reeves and Prince William County District Supervisor Yesli Vega. So the Republicans have a competitive primary. We'll find out who her opponent, Spanberger's opponent, will be. But this is the type of district where, putting in time on the weekends and trying to get out the vote is going to make a difference. And I think, obviously, this is not super far from us. Parts of it are only, half an hour, 45 minutes away from us. So we'll hear some more about this, about how you can get involved at the end. But this is one of the districts that we will be spending some time on in 2022 because we want to send Congresswoman Spanberger back, and we want to, make sure that we hold this seat that is, one of the Nova seats that is able, it's something that we're able to really help out a lot because it is so close. Okay. I will move on to the 2nd congressional district, which is currently represented by Elaine Luria, Congressman Luria. The current district's on the left, the new district's on the right. It doesn't look too different, but unfortunately, there have been a lot of changes that have been made, and this district did not go to the Democrats' way. In redistricting, it has become more Republican. So on the left, you can see that it includes part of the city of Norfolk, and then it goes across the water into Hampton and then up to Williamsburg. The new district does not do that. It does not include any of Norfolk, and it goes west towards Suffolk and more rural areas, and those areas are more Republican. And also Congresswoman Luria is from Norfolk, so her hometown was taken out of the district. She has said she will run in this district, and so it's one of those things where I think, unfortunately, she got the short end of the stick in redistricting. She was probably the member of Congress from Virginia that got that got hurt by redistricting, and I'll show you why based on some of the numbers in the next slide. So the current version of the district, the district she represents right now, was won by Biden by 5 points in 2020. The new district, the new version of the district was won by Biden by about 2 points. So you see it's gotten a little bit more Republican. And that's, obviously not great for Congresswoman Luria. But the other thing is Hampton Roads is a very swingy area, unfortunately, for Congresswoman Luria. And the new district was won by Youngkin by over 10 points. So it's going to be a tough race. I think, while the 7th, I think it's going to be a competitive race. I think Congresswoman Spanberger has an advantage. The 2nd is very much a toss-up, very much, going to be a close race. And I think, it's one of those districts where we're going to have to work on turnout. Turnout was an issue in 2021 in this district. The Republicans, the front runner is a state senator, Jen Kiggins. She's had some fundraising issues. There's been rumors that Congressman Scott Taylor might want to jump in, a former congressman who used to represent the district, who had a lot of scandals, might want to run in. So the Republican field is not set yet, and it's not clear who's going to be running against Congresswoman Luria. But this is really the district, I think, that is going to be the one that is going to be the toughest for Democrats to defend. And obviously it's further from us. I think we're still going to try to make some efforts to either go down there or at least make phone calls or send postcards. I think one really interesting fact about this district is that the party that's won this House seat has won the House, has been the party in control of the House of Representatives in every election since 2008. So it's very much a bellwether district. So I think if Democrats are able to hold all 3 of these competitive seats and keep it a 7-4 House delegation from Virginia, there's a good chance Democrats are going to be able to hold the House. So the 2nd is really kind of on a knife's edge. It's really one of those districts where it could decide who's going to be in control of the House of Representatives come next year. So that's Congress. I know I was kind of quick, but I did want to go over some of the state stuff, and I also wanted to leave some time for questions. So I'm going to move on to the state Senate, and I call this holding the wall, because if anyone has been paying attention, unfortunately, the House of Delegates is Republican right now. We obviously have a Republican governor. The only thing stopping a lot of these laws that will roll back all the progress we made is the state Senate. So the state Senate has killed a lot of bills that would have rolled back everything the Democrats did when they were in power. And so it's the state Senate is not going to be up for election this year. No matter what happens, they are going to be up for election in 2023. So we'll talk about that and some of the quick facts about the state Senate if you're not familiar. So there are 40 seats in the state Senate, and you need 21 seats for a majority. Unfortunately, the lieutenant governor right now is currently a Republican. That means a 2020 tie is broken by the GOP lieutenant governor. So it's not good enough for Democrats to get a 2020 tie. They need to get 21 seats, at least 21 seats, to get a majority. So beyond the fact that it's important to block bills, it's also only up for re-election every 4 years. And I think a lot of people don't realize how important 2023 is, because one, if Democrats don't win either the House of Delegates or the state Senate, and the Republicans make a clean sweep, they're going to be able to pass whatever they want, including a lot of bills that would, roll back so much progress. But on top of that, the state Senate is not going to be up for election again until 2027. So let's say, hopefully, Democrats elect a governor in 2025. That person will have to work with the state Senate elected in 2023. So it's kind of hard to imagine that what happens in 2023 will matter for 4 years. But that's the reality of Virginia elections. And the only reason Democrats have been blocking all these bills is because they won the state Senate election in 2019. So if Democrats didn't win that election, we'd be in a different place. Anyways, let's talk about the new maps. There are 19 seats where Biden won by at least 20 points. So that's really good news. Democrats start off with 19 seats essentially in the bank. unless something crazy happens, they will have 19 seats, pretty safe. And you need 21 for a majority. 20 of those seats were won by McAuliffe, by the way. So even in a rough year, Democrats won 20 of the seats. But they need 21 seats. And frankly, I don't think it was an accident the maps were drawn this way. I think the special masters wanted both the state Senate and the House of Delegates to be competitive. So they made it so that both chambers are toss-ups in 2023. So even though it sounds great, look, we got 19 seats off the bat, you need 2 more seats. And those last 2 seats are going to be tough for a couple reasons. I think they're winnable, but I'm going to talk about 4 districts, and Democrats need to win 2 of these 4 districts to get to the majority of 21. So this is State Senate District 16, the new version of it. It is in the Richmond suburbs in Western Henrico County. It's kind of amazing if you think about it. Biden won this district by 17 points. McAuliffe, in a rough year, won this district by 5. So you might be saying, we're good, we're going to win this district. Unfortunately, there's a state senator, a GOP state senator, her name is Siobhan Donovan. She won in a tough district for her in 2019 in a blue district. She's a Republican. So she is likely going to be running for re-election here. And I don't think you can take for granted that she will be a tough candidate. She's a doctor. She has kind of her brand in the area. And so Democrats are going to have to really work to take this seat. This is the type of seat that Democrats should win. I mean, McAuliffe won this district. So this is something where if we're thinking about trips not too far away, I think this is a good district to go to. It's hopefully no traffic. It would be about 2-hour drive in Western Henrico. So this is a district very winnable for Democrats, but can't take it for granted. You have a Republican incumbent in this seat. Okay, let's talk about some districts closer to home. This one is very close. It's in primarily based in Loudoun County. It's State Senate District 31. Again, Biden won this district by about 13 points, and Youngkin barely won this district by 1 point. It's another one of those districts where we're going to have likely a GOP incumbent senator in Jill Vogel, who ran for lieutenant governor in 2017 as a Republican, lost, but has high name ID. I think people, a lot of people think, well, Jill Vogel's are going to be very tough to beat, and I agree with that. But I think Democrats have a couple things going for them. One is she does not represent much of Loudoun right now, just represents a very small portion of it. And if you look at the district is a little bit oddly shaped. There's this weird, panhandle or arm that goes all the way to the Fairfax border. And that part of the district is very blue. It's been growing. It's a Democratic kind of strength area. Leesburg is pretty Democratic too. And this is, again, one of those districts, if Democrats get out their voters, it went for Biden by a good margin. If we can get voters out and persuade them to vote for Democrats, this is another state Senate seat we can pick up. And it's really close. You can get to it probably within half an hour, at least parts of it within half an hour. And so if we win that Western Henrico seat that was a McAuliffe district, and we win this district, we'll have a majority. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Sam. You finish what you're saying, and then we have a question.
Go ahead.
Someone wanted to know if any Democrat has announced in the 16th district.
I have not heard anything. So this is the Western Henrico district. I've heard maybe a current delegate, Skylar Van Valkenburg, may run there, but I have not heard any confirmation. So I have not heard anything. And I have not heard anything about the 31st district. So that's one thing Democrats are going to have to do. They're going to have to recruit some good candidates to run in these districts next year in 2023. But good question. Okay, I'm going to quickly talk about 2 more districts. There's one that's pretty close to us. This is the new 27th district in the Fredericksburg area. This will be a tough district for Democrats because Biden only won it by 6. Youngkin won it by almost 10. The main reason I included it is it's not too far away, and we will be talking about the House of Delegates. There's going to be a very competitive House of Delegates election in Fredericksburg. And so this is the type of district where if you're going to take the trip down to Fredericksburg, you know, you're going to want to talk to people about House of Delegates, but also state Senate. So I think if Democrats have a good night next year, this is the type of district they can win. It's not super red. It's pretty, it voted for Biden. It's trending towards the Democrats. So I think this is just something to keep an eye on. Hopefully we'll be able to win this seat. We don't need it for a majority, but hopefully it'll be a seat that'll flip next year, and we can work on it while we're working on the House of Delegates. And I'll just end on the state Senate side with state Senate District 24, which is all the way down in Hampton Roads. But if we do want to make a trip, this will be a good place to go because it includes Williamsburg. So you could kind of take a long weekend and have some explore in Williamsburg. And we'll talk about Arlington Blue families. We like to take kid-friendly trips. So anyways, this is a district that Biden won by 6 and Youngkin won by about 8. The reason why I think it's an important district for Democrats is because we're likely going to have an incumbent Democratic state senator, Monty Mason, run for re-election here. And so you have a local candidate who already has a brand. This district includes Newport News and it includes Williamsburg. So African-American and youth turnout are going to be really important. One of the lessons I learned from 2021, and we can talk about it in the Q&A, is that Democrats have to get out all parts of their base. So they can't just focus on, you know, we'll get people out in the suburbs. You need college towns to turn out. You need African-American areas to turn out. You need Hispanic, Asian areas. You need all parts of the base to turn out. This is the type of district, if Democrats get their base out, they're going to win this seat. If they don't get their base out, they're not going to win this seat. So I think, you know, who knows how, and Josh and Richard and other people are going to be talking about where we're going to all try to figure out where we're going to spend some time. But I think it's important to think about turnout, thinking about getting out people to vote, especially because there's not going to be any statewide election in 2023. The state Senate is the highest seat that's going to be elected, and we're going to need to motivate people to get out and vote. All right, I'll move right along to the House of Delegates. And I will say this will be another layer of defense. And the reason I say that is we're going to have Governor Youngkin until 2025, most likely. And so the state Senate is what's blocked his agenda. If we can take back the House of Delegates is currently controlled by the Republicans. They passed a lot of horrible legislation in the House of Delegates. It didn't make it because of the state Senate. But if Democrats control the House of Delegates, they can block things. They can also pass bills with the state Senate and force Youngkin to veto them, or hopefully he'll sign them. So it's important we get the House of Delegates back, even if we control the state Senate. Again, we may have elections this year. More likely than not, I think they're going to be next year, but we can go through some of the most competitive seats before, and we'll take a quick look at what the landscape looks like. So there are 100 seats in the House of Delegates. You need 51 seats for a majority. The good news is there's no tiebreaker in the House of Delegates. So if a 50-50 vote happens, a bill cannot move forward because you need a majority in the House to pass a bill. So that means Democrats really only need to get to 50 to stop a bill. Obviously, it'd be nice to have 50 plus, 51, 52, hopefully more. But all Democrats really need to do to stop the Republicans' agenda is to get 50 seats. And these are elected every 2 years normally. So we're going to have them elections in 2025 again, but they're obviously very important in 2023. So under the new maps, there are 49 seats where Biden won by at least 15 points, and there are 48 seats where McAuliffe won. And again, I don't think this is an accident. I really do think the special masters wanted to make the district, both chambers, basically toss-ups. So, if we win all the McAuliffe seats, which hopefully we do in 2023, Democrats still need 2 more seats. So they can't, sorry, they can't just assume, oh, well, we're gonna be able to win because there are all these Biden seats. McAuliffe only won 48 seats. And that's something I should just mention. I like looking at the Biden numbers, but I also like looking at the McAuliffe numbers. Biden did really well for a Democrat in Virginia. He was running against probably one of the worst candidates to run in Virginia as a Republican. So while it's important to think about, okay, how much did Biden win by? You can't just assume, well, Biden won this district by 2, so Democrats are going to win that district. Biden, I think, did much better than the average Democrat in Virginia because of how horrible Donald Trump was as a candidate. And I think Virginia is also more evenly split at the state level, as we found out in 2021. More people are likely to vote for the Republicans. So that's why I say you really have to look at the McAuliffe numbers on top of the Biden numbers. And anyway, so Democrats, if they win all the seats McAuliffe won, they still need 3 seats to get to a majority. They need 2 seats to get to a 50-50 tie where they can at least block the Republican agenda. Let's talk about 4 seats. Again, if Democrats win 2 of the 4, they'll get a 50-50 tie. If they win 3 of the 4, they'll get a majority. This district, I think, is really interesting and also kind of one that I don't think Democrats should take for granted. So it's kind of incredible. It was a 62-36 Biden district. So, I mean, Biden just blew it out here. But why? Because Trump was such a bad candidate in the suburbs, really toxic in Nova. I think Youngkin won this district. It's a little bit hard to calculate, and I can talk to you about some of the difficulties in calculating who won this district. But regardless, it was very close in 2021. This is part of northern or western Prince William County near Manassas, kind of out on 66. Very split area, so you have a lot of conservative rural areas still in this district, even though it's become a more suburban type district. And I don't think Democrats should take districts like this for granted in 2023 because the turnout really struggles in these off-year elections. And Prince William County, one of the things that Democrats were able to do in the Trump years is they were able to really get their voters out in those off-year elections, but the vote fell in 2021. So this is a close district, one that we can probably work on getting out the vote. I don't think any current incumbent lives here, so it'll be an interesting race. Let me just move along because I want to save some time for questions. Josh will be very familiar with this district if he's still on the call. This is a Fredericksburg-based district, and this is where Delegate Josh Cole lost in 2021, unfortunately, but it's been redrawn. It's been less gerrymandered. Biden won it by 12, but Youngkin won it by 3. Delegate Cole has said that he's going to run again, likely. So this is a must win. I think Democrats really got to get Delegate Cole back into the House of Delegates. This will be the type of district that they need to win to get a majority. Again, not too far in Fredericksburg. There might be a competitive state Senate seat as well. So Democrats really should, this is one of the districts I think we should focus on. This is a bit of more of a reach for Democrats, even though it voted for Biden. Again, Prince William County is going to be one of the battleground areas. This is kind of middle Prince William County, voted for Biden by 6, but Youngkin won it by 5. And this has more rural areas. This is more traditionally a Republican area of Prince William County. We'll see. I don't know who's running in these districts yet. I think Democrats should give it a shot because I think Nova has become more Democratic, and I think it'll be good to try to compete in a district like this. Again, not too far from us, so we can try to go and help. And I will close out with one district that is another opportunity to double up. So I talked about Western Henrico for the state Senate seat. There's another district in Western Henrico. Biden won it by 6, but Youngkin won it. Again, if we're going down to Western Henrico, we're spending time in Western Henrico because of the state Senate seat. We might want to go to these areas where there's also likely going to be a competitive House of Delegates seat. And so I think Democrats are doing decent in the suburbs, and this is one of those areas where Democrats can hopefully be able to win in 2021. So I will just close it out. I know I went kind of quickly because I wanted to save time for questions. Here are some resources. There's the VA, the Supreme Court order and maps. If you want to take a look at the legal brief the special masters wrote, you can definitely go and take a look at that. The maps are what they are. I would really recommend something called VPAP. It's the Virginia Public Access Project. If you haven't heard of it, just kind of Google it and you go on their website and you can take a look at all the maps. They do a really good job kind of simplifying the maps. You can kind of go deep into each district. You can really look at the street level. I think they also have a feature where you can put your address in and you can figure out which district you're in. So that's a very good resource. If you really want to get super nerdy about this stuff, there's something called Dave's Redistricting app. I won't spend too much time on it, but it's a kind of an interesting resource if you want to really geek out. And then I'm on Twitter. That's usually where I post my takes about the election stuff. And I'll also put my email in the chat. And yeah, that's it. I wanted to stop so we had time for questions. Don't be shy. Or Richard.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sam. Post your questions in the chat, and I'll feed them to Sam. First question I got, and I'll combine these because I think they were asking a fairly similar question, is with Congresswomen Spanberger and Luria. What effect are the new district lines going to have on them? In the sense of how well will they be able to introduce themselves to their new voters?
Good question. I think Congresswoman Spanberger's district is very different. So she only has about 25% of her old district. So that will be one of her challenges. I think she has been putting in the work already. She's been hitting the new parts of the district. She's getting her name out there. She's already pretty well known because she's one of the more high profile members of the Virginia delegation. So I think she's going to do a good job of introducing herself. Congresswoman Luria, a little bit of the same thing. I mean, most of her district is still based in Virginia Beach, and she's always represented Virginia Beach. She will need to go out there, introduce herself to new voters. That's always the challenge with redistricting. I mean, I'm hoping, it's going to be one of those things. They put in the time, they do it. They seem to be doing it as far as I can tell. It's just, one of those things that always happens with redistricting. You're going to get new parts of your district, and it's a challenge for incumbents.
The person who asked one of those questions also specifically wanted to know all that new territory for Luria in Chesapeake, Suffolk, in the peanut belt, as people call it, in rural southeastern Virginia. Who used to represent those areas?
So I think it was split between the 4th district with Congressman Manichin and then the 3rd district with Bobby Scott. So those were both in Democratic districts. I think the challenge Luria is going to have in that area, and Democrats are going to have, is that those areas are kind of a mix of rural and medium-sized towns, and most of the Democrats there are African-American. And I think it's really important for the Democratic Party to not take those voters for granted, to try to get them out to vote. There were some issues with turnout in 2021. I think it's important for Luria to put in the time to meet with those folks. I think she's doing it. It's just a challenging part of the state because it all comes down to turnout, and the Republicans usually are able to get out their voters. So it's important for Democrats to get out their voters.
Okay, we have a question that's related to that topic, which is what can Democrats do to increase their support in rural Virginia?
Good question. So I think specifically the 7th and the 2nd both have rural areas, and they have rural areas where Democrats have struggled. And I think Congresswoman Spanberger is a good example because her current district has some rural areas, and she actually ran ahead of President Biden in some of those areas. And her strategy is, I think, just talk to folks. Well, her strategy is listen, and what are their concerns? What are they talking about? And just work with them, and not just kind of say, well, that's something I don't care about, or that's not important. If it is important to rural people, we should listen to them. I mean, we don't always have to agree with everything, but I think if people see that you're making an effort, if you show up, you listen to them, you might not agree at the end of the day, but they see, okay, this is a person who is reasonable, who will represent me. That's honestly just showing up and listening. I think that's what Congresswoman Spanberger would say. There's a sense that people have that, oh, Democrats, they never come to rural Virginia and then they just tell us what we should think. I don't think that's true, but that's the perception, and we should try to work to change that. And Congresswoman Spanberger, I know, is putting in the work. I hope other people do. And there's a lot of good organizations working on that. And so I hope we can improve it in rural Virginia going forward.
Okay, here's another question that combines a couple of different questions, which is we have a number of races in what you would call outer Northern Virginia, in Loudoun, in Prince William, in Stafford. How can we deal with all those new voters who move in there every year, every month, every week, many of them who don't have roots around here?
Good question. Yeah, those areas are growing very quickly. And I think, again, a lot of politics comes down to showing up and listening and making an effort. And what I mean by that is, you saw it in my presentation where I say, Arlington's blue, we don't have to worry about this. It's true from a practical perspective that, it doesn't make sense for us to spend time going out talking to people in Arlington for a congressional race. There are other races that are going to be competitive. But sometimes people look on a map and say, well, that district, it's there are a lot of minorities that live there. They're always going to vote for Democrats, and so we shouldn't worry about that part of the district. The reality is, you need to get people out to vote. And so if you're new to Virginia, you don't know anything about the elections. You particularly don't know there are elections in 2023. And we're all very politically savvy and we pay attention to this stuff. You'd be surprised how many people don't know there are elections in odd years in Virginia. They just don't know there is an election for the state Senate. And telling people like, hey, in 2023, if the Republicans take control of the General Assembly, they could pass really radical bills that would limit voting rights, reproductive rights, repeal the minimum wage. They could gut environmental regulations. That is all going to be decided in 2023. And people don't know that. So I think showing up, telling them, explaining, not just, hey, let's vote for Democrats because, we want to win, but telling people the stakes that there are going to be elections that are going to decide really important things. And we believe we offer a better vision than Republicans. So just showing up, explaining to people, it's basic, but that's kind of the reality of politics. And hopefully that happens in 2022 and 2023.
Okay, we have a question. What is the likely effect of Governor Youngkin's record on the elections coming up this year and next year?
So I think that's a big question, and I think part of it will depend on his approval, but I think part of it is also us tapping into what happened in 2021 in a positive way. Now, obviously 2021 was a very difficult year in terms of the election not going our way, as was 2016. But what Democrats did after 2016 was they kind of harnessed that energy. They got people involved. I know people who just recently got involved with Arlington Democrats because they were like, I couldn't believe a Republican got elected governor. And why did that happen? And I think it's important for, as Democrats, to kind of use his victory to kind of show people that you can't take anything for granted. You have to vote in every election. We have to try in every election. We have to try in every part of Virginia, and really just kind of harness that energy. I don't know what Youngkin's approval ratings are going to be, but I know Democrats are not going to be happy with him. And so regardless of what, Republicans think about him, we need to get our voters out, and we need to kind of use all the kind of divisive stuff he's been ginning up, because frankly, he's doing that to get his base out. He wants his base fired up. And what we have to do is we have to get our base fired up, and that's our job. And hopefully we can use some of that energy of that people are upset about what's going on in Virginia, upset about some of the things he's been doing, and use that to kind of get people involved.
All right, I think that concludes the Q&A. So Sam, do you want to tell people a little bit about Blue Families?
Sure. So Arlington Blue Families, it's something Josh and I and a few other co-chairs are trying to get involved with this year's midterms. The idea behind Blue Families is we want people with kids, and I have 2 young kids. They have not made too much noise, thankfully. We want people with kids to get involved, and we're going to have different events, hopefully make some trips with Beyond Arlington and other groups, maybe have some social get-togethers to get to know each other, but really also get involved in politics. And I'll just give you my pitch before Richard gives you his pitch. I think all this stuff was interesting. There's an old expression that strategy is for amateurs, logistics is for experts. So I really respect a lot of what Richard and Josh do, because they really spend the time, organize canvases, organize postcards, organize phone banks. It's easy to kind of not want to go out and just, observe this stuff as interesting and follow the news. But the reality is we need people to get involved, knock on doors, call people, write postcards. However, just frankly, talking to your friends, getting them more energized about these elections, because 2022 is going to be important. 2023 is going to be really important. We can't let all the progress we've made get rolled back, and the Republicans are going to be fired up, and we got to get as fired up as they are going to be. So anyways, all that's to say is Arlington Blue Families is one way to get involved. If you have kids, it's especially good to get involved with us, but you can also get involved if you don't have kids. And yeah, so please, either with us or with another organization, use what you learned today to get involved for 2022 and 2023. And I'll turn it over to Richard, because he's been doing great work with Beyond Arlington.
Thank you, Sam. Beyond Arlington is the part of the Arlington Democrats that deals with races outside of Arlington, as the name would imply. We work closely with Blue Families and with the Arlington Young Democrats. And we engage in canvassing and phone banking and text banking, and then we collaborate with Blue Families on postcard writing. We've already begun work on phone banking and text banking, and if you're on our email list or you follow us on Facebook, you'll learn about some of the stuff we're doing. We're making calls to multiple states around the country that have competitive races. For many races right now, we kind of have to wait on either a primary or a filing deadline. In the 7th and the 2nd, I believe Spanberger and Luria are the only declared candidates. The filing deadline is coming up in April, and after that, we'll have a better sense of who's running. And if those indeed are the only candidates, we'll be able to start working with them right away. So in terms of races that we're going to be targeting, it's pretty much what Sam told you. The 7th is the probably our top race in the whole country. Not only, of course, is it very close to us, that the population centers are in Prince William and Stafford and Spotsylvania, all places that we can get to quite easily. And but it is of course a very, very competitive race. Fortunately, as Sam has mentioned, Abigail Spanberger has a pretty good record of winning some very competitive races. We'll also, our goal really with the 7th is to have people go out there every weekend this fall. And then we'll also be involved with the 2nd, probably not as heavily just because it's farther away. And then we have some interest in canvassing in some nearby states like Pennsylvania and North Carolina. And finally, we are also doing some skill sharing with one county party so far. Perhaps we'll do them with more. The county party we're working with is Stafford. As Sam mentioned, of course, it's in the 7th district. Next year, it's likely to have competitive Senate and House races. We're already in touch with the people in Stafford. They're very nice people, and they're really happy to be working with us. So if you want to email me, I'm at beyond@arlingtondemocrats.com. That is beyond, like to infinity and beyond, at arlingtondemocrats.org. And Lisa has also posted a sign up in the chat. Sam, I think we're done here.
Yep. Thanks, Mary. You want to take us out?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, everyone. It was a great, thank you, Sam, the presenter, and Richard and Josh and everyone for all your work. Thank you to Lisa, our tech guru, and thank you for all of our participants for joining in. It's going to be a great ride this year, next year, and I think we're much more informed now about what we are up against and what we have in the way of good things to work for. So thank you so much for all the information. Now to use it.
I have one last question before you leave. When will we know when the delegates races will be? When do you think the lawsuit will be finalized so that we know the details?
I think sometime in the spring. So just really quickly, the 4th Circuit has to decide within the next month, I would say, whether the case can even go forward. So we may find out in the next month the case is dismissed, and then we'll know there's no election this year. If the 4th Circuit says the case can go forward, that doesn't mean there's going to be elections. It has to go back to the district court. District court has to decide, which will take a few. So I think likely sometime in the spring. If there are special primaries, I think it would be in August. Who knows? I mean, so it's not going to be super quick. I think we'll find out probably soonest within a month, but it could take up to 2-3 more months. Yeah. Thanks.
Be a tough one if it were a betting pool. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lisa, for recording.
Thank you, Mary.